spirit of Professor Micere Mugo, long live. Long live the revolutionary spirit of Professor Micere Mugo, long live. Long live the spirit.
And now to the words from Limuru girls. Hadithi, hadithi. Hadithi, hadithi. Hakuna uongo hapa lakini itakolea. It was the dawn of an exciting new decade, the 60s. The Kenya colony was in a frenzy of transition. Everyone, well, almost everyone was excited. Behind lay the trauma of the state of emergency. Ahead was the heady promise of Uhuru. The excitement rose to fever pitch in February 1961, with the first elections to ever bring in the majority of African seats at the Legislative Council. Everywhere, there was change in the air as white faces gave way to black faces. A new euphoria as preparations were made in earnest for the birth of Kenya as a brand new independent nation. And on all fronts, the changes were happening. Sometimes faster than the guardians of the old colonial era were ready to accept. And so it was that change came to a little school tucked in the heart of what was then called the White Highlands, where, according to school law, a progressive head teacher put a daring proposal on the table before her board. It was time, she said, for the school, which had begun as a small family initiative in 1922, to take the big step away from racial exclusion to integration. It was time for Limuru Girls' School to take the big step as it approached 40 years as a whites-only establishment to integrate. To the school community, this was as momentous, as daring, as the idea of independence was for many in the country. What? Bring an African, leave alone an Asian girl, to join the school body? Horror! There were many who exclaimed. Impossible, said others. Much as it would be a nice thing to do, it would surely be too much to expect non-European girls to fit in. Surely they would struggle to keep up with the rest of the classmates, especially in class. It would be such a cruel thing to do to the poor dears. They would not have the social skills. Would they even know how to behave properly as a student of this elite school? The advocates for the idea were not to be deterred, however. The school was a Christian school, they pointed out. Would it not be the Christian thing to do? And so a compromise was arrived at. 2 students only, 1 Asian and 1 African, would be given the opportunity to show if indeed girls of their race had the intellectual mettle and social civilization to fit in. And so it was, in early 1961, Limuru Girls' School embarked on its great experiment. An experiment that was being followed keenly all over the country as other European schools held their breath and waited. 2 pioneer students were invited to join the incoming A-level class. The African girl was Madeline Micere Githai. Wenzangu mpo? Bado kweli mpo? Now, I could simply say the rest is history. The records show that Madeline Githai did indeed go on to not only survive, but to excel at her time in Limuru, passing every test in the classroom, where she made nonsense of the notion that of the alleged intellectual inferiority of the African, on the sports field, where she earned the grudging admiration of her peers by earning glory for the school on the track field. In every aspect of her conduct, while try as they might, those who searched could not find a single reason to suggest race could be a rational reason for any child in Kenya, or elsewhere for that matter, to be denied an opportunity to education in any institution. By the time she left, not only were the doors wide open for the myriads of girls who would come after her in that school, of all races and classes, from all parts of the country, with a range of backgrounds from the most humble to the most elite, but she also graduated at the top of her class, earning a coveted scholarship to Cambridge, which she turned down, preferring instead to go to the University of East Africa at Micere, where, but that is a story for another time. If I had the time, I would ask you for a moment to step back to what it must have been for a teenager to have such enormous responsibility placed on your shoulders. Imagine what it might have been like to leave home, a place where you were loved, cherished, affirmed, and left in no doubt at all that you belonged, to go to school. No, not that cherished school, the African Girls High School Alliance, that for 4 years, and I'm sure if Honorable Niva was here, we would have heard, she was loved, she was popular, she excelled at a range of things, she was affirmed and celebrated. But to go to this new environment, where the majority saw you as a lesser being and deeply resented your presence, where you had no respite for weeks on end. You couldn't even go home every evening to be embraced and rejuvenated on the bosom of those who did appreciate and love you, where you had to go on day after day, week after week, proving to the world that you, just as you were good enough as everyone else, knowing every single little thing you did was judged, not just as about you, but as the representative of an entire race. And did I mention that by doing so, you would be the very first African child, boy or girl, to be put to test in quite this way, as only one of 2 children integrating what hitherto had been a European-only boarding school in the entire country. And yes, one might argue her success or failure would not have been the end of the world. Kenya would have continued its inexorable march towards independence. Sooner rather than later, African and Asian girls would have been welcomed at this school, as indeed racial exclusion died, at least officially, a timely death in Kenya. I think it is important, however, to see these 2 years not just in the life of this one teenager, but for what it symbolized for the many other sisters who followed in her path. Bado mpo? Limuru Girls' School has a simple motto: in fide vade, in faith we go. It is a reminder that school is a place for preparing us for the future, a place of instilling in us or revealing to us our character, building the foundation that we will live in years to come. From activists such as have spoken before me, little girls come. One cannot help but wonder, thinking of our big sister Micere, if it was indeed at this school that the determination to invest her life in creating liberated zones wherever she went, to building community and supporting those who find themselves on the margin was born, or at least deepened. If it was not there that she first appreciated the responsibility of what it means to be the first, and she would be the first many times after that, not as a privilege to flaunt or demand special benefits, but as an opportunity to bust open spaces of exclusion to create access for others. If it is indeed in those years that she picked up the mantle of a liberation warrior, much as years later, the children in the play she co-authored with Ngugi wa Thiong'o, The Trial of Dedan Kimathi, would, growing up from being a witness to the struggles in society, to putting body, soul, and spirit on the line, becoming an active participant in facilitating the change one envisions in society. I could go on and on, but time is not on our side. So on behalf of my school sisters, those who have gone ahead of us, those who are here, and those who will follow, I stand here to bear witness to the gift of a sister, a mentor, a leader, a pioneer, whose memory, even in her physical absence, inspires, challenges, and encourages us to go forth in faith in the journeys and tasks that we have been called to. To always remember that privilege comes with great responsibility, that the gifts we have been given in our time are not because we are better than anyone else, but rather because chance places us in the positions we have. And so to us is given the challenge to live our lives in a way that influences the world for better, to do our part in transforming the society we are through living life characterized by Utu, always working towards the liberation of the country, the society, and the world in which we live. Big Sister Micere, your years at Limuru Girls were not in vain. We live the lessons, we follow the legacy, we are inspired by your life. We too, as you did, will go forth in faith. And so we salute you as you cross over to join the journey you are called to in Fide Vade. Thank you.
I don't know if I should also add a degree in literature because I'm really awed by all your oration. I'm going to invite my colleague, Dr. Jennifer. She's going to give us just house rules about our lunch. Riara University, I gather you're not in the room, so we'll skip that and have an early lunch. Oh, sorry, you're in the room. Okay, it's your moment. Thank you so much, our esteemed panelists. You can have a seat. All right, let's have Riara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Kavalaji. I'm a recent graduate of Riara University. We are not really going to perform, but we'll say a little about our experience or how we came to meet Professor Micere Mugo. So I come from a place where kids don't really dream. And if they dream, their dreams are limited to their environment. Most people from where I come from are tea pluckers. So most kids, their dream is to finish primary school and join their parents because that's the only thing they know. That is the only success they know. And so that was true for me as well. As I grew up, I never knew that one day I'll stand in this place and say, what great achievement I've got out of education. It was even hard for kids like me to choose a national school. While in primary, we only heard about these schools, but we never really knew that we could go to these schools. And so we really never dreamed that we'll be here. But education is our only leverage, especially for kids who come from humble backgrounds. And so I tried my best to do what I can. I went to Samoei Boys High School. From there, I went to Riara University to pursue communication and multimedia journalism. Now, that is half of the story. It took me close to 6 years to complete my degree. And one of the reasons was because at some point I couldn't raise school fees. And so by the time it reached March this year, I knew I wouldn't graduate. And that meant that I would wait till next year without a plan. So I went online and I did a fundraiser on Mchanga. I raised half of the fee to get me through. But then even with that, I wasn't really sure that I would graduate because I was still far behind. So I applied for the Njeri Global Award, and luckily, I was among the few students who got it. And I'm happy to share to you that that award enabled me to graduate from Riara University with a first-class honors in BA Communication and Multimedia Journalism. I know as a Gen Z, if I'm going to tell you about Micere Mugo, then I'll be lying, because it will be a compilation of the stories I've heard, of the articles I've read, and the videos I've watched. So I'll talk from a personal experience. And this is to say, thank you so much to Professor Micere Mugo, for the award has not only opened doors for me, but it has empowered so many other students who are not here today. Again, I say, thank you so much. I have not had to tarmac. Before my graduation, I started working. So I'd say, if you can, whoever is here, whoever is watching, if you can, you don't have to empower 1,000 people. You just need to empower one. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name is Helen Tumaini. I am a student at Riara University. I wrote a whole speech, but right now I feel like I can, as he has said, I am a Gen Z. If I say whatever is in this speech, honestly, it's Googled. I'm going to speak what I honestly feel about Professor Mugo. A while back, a bursary was handed over to us via our school, VC over there, and the dean. I remember applying because I had reached a point in my life where I was starting to doubt the importance of school. I was starting to doubt, what am I doing in school? You know, I'd finished Form 4 a while back. I'm a Corona baby, as they call them, yes. So I'd finished Form 4. It was very difficult getting to school, so I deferred. Then I got some people to help me, got into school. So we're still struggling, you know? And the Swahili say, wa kutafuta hachoki hadi apate, si ndio? So I was still struggling, looking for ways each semester, and it reached a point where this semester I was done. I was honestly done. I said, I don't know how I'm going to clear this. So I just applied. But then again, how many of these have we applied for? I've applied for nearly 20 plus since I finished high school. So I'm in a point where I'm like, 19 said no. Why would one say yes? What are the odds? And I remember the dean calling me and telling me that you have actually won this thing. You're going ahead. And he really encouraged me and told me that Professor Mugo wants you to know that she could not be there, but you should strive on. You're still in school. The rest of our Ds, most of them are graduating, like Brian. I was the only one who was in between. And so I remember feeling a mixture of emotions at that moment. I immediately called my mother and told her, Mom, we've gotten away. I'm going to do these exams. Whatever she felt, I could see her face, even though we were on the phone. I could see her face, literally. And at that point in time, that's when I started, as the Gen Z that I am, Googling Professor Mugo. I tell you, I transnighted that night, not reading, but listening to her speeches, listening to what she had to say. This is a woman who is the true depiction of an African woman. This is a woman that I want to grow up and become. This is a woman who not only impacted me financially, but me mentally. She is a mentor to me because the words that she has said countless of times affected me as if she were talking to me. And it's so unfortunate that I didn't get to meet her. That thing really hurts me so much because I had so many questions to ask. But all in all, I am grateful. I am grateful for this wonderful woman. I am grateful for the opportunity she has given me. I am grateful for the hope that she has given me. She has inspired me to move on. She has inspired me to continue, regardless of the challenges that I face. And even as I continue, I urge all of us to also continue. Let her continue to be our drive. Let her continue to show us that we are remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the students from Riara University. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Martha Karua. Thank you very much for joining us. We were just about to take a lunch break, but I would like to give this moment actually to Honorable Karua to speak to us briefly, then we take the break, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I came in at a great moment because I've been able to hear personal testimonies from those two students. It's really very touching that a professor was out there in the US impacting our students here in Kenya, something that is so rare. Because even those of us who are here, not many will stand to say they impacted one or two students in a year. Her work was truly phenomenal. I went to a tribute session by the social justice centers and was truly amazed to realize that although thousands of miles away, Professor Micere was working with social justice centers here in Nairobi. I felt so challenged. I know of them. We collaborate sometimes by coincidence, but I have not myself reached out to work with any of the social justice centers. But thousands of miles away, she was working with our social justice centers. How amazing. And it is good that these sessions are being held because we not only appreciate how amazing she was, it also challenges us to each do just a little wherever you can to impact society. Maybe we do in different ways, but seeing how she was reaching out, could we also just do a little extra and reach out? Professor Micere's life is a mirror for us to see how much a human being can do to impact positively. We live in a world which needs so many things done. We are used to complaining about what is not being done. How about, apart from pointing out what should be done, if each one of us did the little they could wherever you can? That's how I feel challenged by the glimpses of her life through the eyes of others. When I joined the University of Nairobi, that was in 1977. I know some of the audience were not born yet. In 1977, I joined the university, and she was one of the lecturers. She was not lecturing me, but I heard of her from my colleagues who were being lectured by her. We heard of other lecturers, outstanding lecturers like Professor Nguge wa Thiong'o. We heard about all the active lecturers that time. I even remember Okot Bitek was also part of the lecturers at this university that time. And from curiosity, once in a while, when there was a public lecture where they were involved, we would go to listen. We used to admire her way of dressing, the way she talked, and if you ever stopped her outside the main library here, she'll stop to speak to you, which was really a humbling experience because a lecturer is a busy person, cannot just stop for any student who is not even her student, but she used to socialize with us. Later on, I got to meet her. I knew, or rather by then I had learned, that we come from the same county. But when I came to this university, where you came from was really not an issue. So my admiration of her was not because she came from Kirinyaga. It was what she represented. I encountered her in Zimbabwe during the Moi era when we went to visit on something to do with the Law Society. And she was there in exile. Later on, she was to go to the US, where she ended up living for the longest. We need to ask ourselves, is there no space for our best in our country? Why do we make it so difficult for our talented people to help us build this nation that wants building? These are all questions which her life reminds us of and which we must continue thinking about and trying to correct. I must say that the impact of Professor Micere Mugo in the University of Nairobi was not just to her students. Together with other active lecturers, they helped us to start critically looking at the world, our world, looking at Kenya, how the system of governance impacts us as students. And when I left the University of Nairobi, I not only left as a graduate of law, I also left as a graduate of the social interactions within this university. And therefore, I can say without any contradiction that she actually did impact me as a student and later in life. And now, posthumously, the things I'm learning about her will continue to impact me and many others. And I'm just wondering what else we can do to immortalize the good in her, which should be replicated. The greatest tribute we can pay to somebody is to immortalize the good that they stood for. And I think these sessions are one great way, but I think there is still much more we can do and we can dream about to make Kenya a good space for us. May she rest in power, and may her ideas live on through all of us. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Karua. Once again, I apologize for the ambush. We're now going to take a short break, a health break, 45 minutes. I will request the family, lunch will be served and all are welcome. I'll request us to allow the family and our guests right here at the front, the speakers, the university management, and our colleagues from the Defenders Coalition, please allow us to have them walk up. The protocol officers will show you where your lunch will be served. The rest of us, in case you have not received a lunch voucher, our ushers are at the door. They will give you a lunch voucher, and our lunch will be served right outside Taifa Hall. Just a reminder, in case you need to use the facilities, you can turn to the right and go to the University of Nairobi Towers. There are facilities from the 1st floor to the 5th floor, and you will be able to use them. We shall meet here at exactly 2:30 for the next session. To our online audience, please grab something to bite as well as we meet at 2:30 p.m. Thank you very much. Please allow our guests to leave first.
Through this door?
Through this door?
Yeah, the staircase. There, I see the preparation.